We have a few minutes left here. So what I would like to do is open it up to the floor. And I didn't tell the panel this, but if you have a question on how you might like to achieve a shot, because there are numerous filmmakers here, ask us, and you'll have suggestions from these three great gurus, and I'll probably try to make them funny. So. Is there any questions, or just about their careers, about the film? We didn't get a full Q&A. If you have any questions about the last film, feel free to throw those in as well. Fedora.
It's more of a compliment for Eric than a question, but I think what I really enjoyed about your film and what maybe other filmmakers can take from it is that the story drives what the required special effects are. And because special effects have become so easy to get a handle on nowadays, people like to throw everything they can in there, whether it has anything to do with the film, whether it has anything to do with the character, whether it's needed or not. But yours, it seems like you only put in what was needed there for the story, and it worked brilliantly.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I don't mind saying that there was a conscious choice in that. I think that storytelling is cooler than. I just like a good story. I like good characters, and I didn't want to. I didn't want to get in the. I didn't want any shortcomings of VFX because I knew that with our budget and the effects team of me to get in the way of the story, and I was lucky to have fantastic actors and improvisational artists and composer, and it was a group effort from everyone. So thank you, I really appreciate that.
Sean and Patrick and I were playing with a phone app that we found called Action Effects or something. I think J.J. Abrams made it, and it was pretty awesome. And anybody can use it to hack your camera. I'm just kind of.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Action
right.
movie.
Yeah.
It's called Action Movie for iPhone. If you don't have it, great effects.
Gavin and Bella blew up everything in our house for a while.
Yeah, we did too. Yeah, immediately. Everybody stole it off of Facebook. So how do you guys feel as filmmakers about these action effects being so accessible, I guess, to everybody? Do you feel like there's any concern about?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a fairly, I don't know. You can decide to stop listening to my jibber jabber at any time, but I do feel like to a certain extent some of that takes some of the specialness out of movies. I love the apps. I love playing with it. I love Video Copilot. But I was just watching even a few minutes of Braveheart today, thinking I kind of miss the days when there was like 500 guys that were really on set and really wearing costumes and really swinging fake weaponry that looked cool enough at each other, as opposed to seeing 10,000 non-humans race across the field at each other. Maybe that's me, but I think personally, I think that there used to be that you would have, when I was younger, you'd have one or two big tentpole movies of the summer, and those you would look forward to all year long, and that would be what you saw your effects in, and everything else would probably be cool stories. And now, I don't know, maybe 30 some odd gigantic visual effects movies, and it does take a little of the special out of the effect, I think, personally. And that's, I don't think it's horrible, but I do think that now the audience is going to demand more than just colorful, cool explosions. The box office doesn't necessarily agree with my line of thinking, but hopefully someday we will all stand up and demand better movies.
Well, I was actually just interesting. I mean, sometimes people say, oh, how do you feel about how easy and accessible technology is getting? Not just like visual effects, guys like me can do it at our house on our computer, and like cameras are getting smaller and cheaper and looking better and better, and everyone's like, do you feel threatened? And I'm like, actually, I'm the one who's benefiting from that. Yeah. I'm threatening guys who are older than me. And that's exciting, but I have a sickness for equipment. I bought and sold like a lot of cameras and all this software and all that, and I've probably bought 20 cameras in my life, but none of them ever came with a good idea in the box,
Great quote.
Whether being able to make a spaceship doesn't mean you can write a story that anyone's going to care about. So ultimately, that's the thing that matters.
So always stick to story. Always stick to story. Yes.
I'd like to hear the whole panel talk about briefly what films and the effects in them were the biggest inspirations for them.
Inspirations for Best effects in films. Let's start down with Patrick.
My inspirational effect. I'm drawing a blank, so you have to skip me.
I think we should all in
Think
unison
about
just
it.
say Star Wars.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know, I like the first 3 Star Wars.
yeah,
The
no,
last-
that's what I mean, yeah.
The last 3 felt like video game cutscenes, and they meant, you know, I found them very emotionless, and like everybody, criticizing the last 3 Star Wars is such a cliche, I don't want to bother, but it is interesting that the actual practical things were dirtier, and you could see the fingerprints actually were more effective.
You know, I've always had a soft spot for Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer
Yeah.
and the Rast Bank and stuff, and that totally translated to Star Wars because
Sure.
they did all the stop motion stuff, and
Yeah.
there's just all that, even though the fur kind of jiggles weird and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah.
It's awesome.
You can literally see the fingerprints on the, yeah.
Did you have a
Well,
specific thing?
I mean, I don't want to, you know, I mean, I was lucky to work with Sam Raimi on Spider-Man 2, and for me to say that something I worked on was an inspiration, I don't want it to come off sounding like that, but Sam Raimi was an inspiration. He pulled, so I was at that time, I was the puppet master. I was the guy who built led the team that built the actual practical tentacles. So, and we were very threatened by CGI. John Dykstra and his team were very interested in taking all of our dear puppets away. And I remember Sam was approached and was told, kind of like, do you want to do the puppets on set and wait for them and wait for the time it's going to take on set, or should we just do this in post? And Sam said loud and clear in front of everyone, I think the kids want to see the puppets. And that statement really, I still remember that to this day, because it really meant a lot to me that he felt, a certain degree of respect to the craft that was being put into handmade items that were going to be on camera, that were going to be on set, and it carried through in production and the love that we all had making that film. But that statement in and of itself, I really loved it. So.
Did you have an iconal scene or effect that drew you in, besides the Star Wars?
Well, you know, I can't think of anything off the top of my head as a kid. Recently, a movie that I really liked that is sort of the direction I don't know if anybody saw Chronicle. It was like this weird little indie movie. That's the kind of effects we're sort of going for, where the movies feel kind of scrappy and the effects are strategically placed so that, for me, sometimes they almost have more impact when they're in a movie that doesn't seem like they should be there or that they could afford it. Because like you see a movie like Transformers, you become numb to the effects because you almost don't walk out of it thinking those effects are great, because it's like a barrage of, it's like if music is all loud, you don't hear anything, you need it to build. And so in our movies, they all look little and scrappy, and then there's an effect that seems a little more sophisticated than the movie has a right to have in it, and then people are startled. But you do them, you know, if you only have like 20 effects in a movie, they'll stand out more than if every other shot has one, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that Chronicle I liked because it felt dirty and handheld and homemade, but then there's, you know, people flying, and it still looks like it's shot on a home video camera. I kind of like that kind of stuff.
I remember seeing Kermit the Frog riding his
Oh,
bike, and I was like, oh, that is awesome. Because it pulled him out of that studio setting, and it made him interact. People were jogging in the park next to him and everything. Blew my mind. And Jason and the Argonauts, and that love probably pinnacled up to seeing Perseus in Clash of the Titans riding the Pegasus and coming in with the head and the Kraken right there. Like, there was a guy inside of all of that. Because, you know, before that, for me, it was, there's a cool puppet and then a guy, and you could tell it was like a split screen type thing. But Perseus went into the action and rode the horse in, and it kind of brought it all together. And I was like, whoa, that was just,
Yeah.
it was, the master of everything that all of us have ever thought about doing. You were next with the question.
Yeah, I needed 4 effects for the movie. If I needed a laser shot, disappearing the victim, then I need an exploding city, and within the exploding city, actors dodging debris. How would you approach that?
Okay, time to show your knowledge, guys.
You can keep it short, that's fine.
Okay, so you had a list, right? I'm trying to remember. You had a laser shot?
Yeah.
Right.
Laser shot and a disappearing victim.
The disappearing victim.
I-
The lock camera works
Yeah.
really good.
I can tell you,
Because
I
then
tell
you
you,
can shoot it with the person or without the person, so that's easy. And the laser shot is the After Effects
Yeah, After-
101 there.
and frankly, you know, I'm gonna sound like I'm proselytizing something, a website that I don't work for. But there's a tutorial for each one of those effects that you just described at videocopilot.net.
Okay.
And there he has free elements that you can use to play with. Then there are ones more sophisticated that you can buy. And frankly, you'll learn so much about just the art of setting up a shot from that guy. And he's fairly entertaining too, so.
Okay, great.
They have plugins called Action Essentials on that website, and they
Called
just,
what?
Action Essentials.
Action Essentials.
They have two, we use them a lot, but they have two collections of them, and they have like 3D elements of explosions and debris and flame, and you stack them, and, you know, they have fog and smoke and things like that, and dirt, you know.
Okay.
And you
So-
just stack them on top of each other. You have to be careful about not holding on them too long, but luckily, like on an explosion, you're supposed to cut right after the explosion anyway.
Right, but the scene itself, you would just shoot it like a regular scene.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you want to lock it off. It makes your life a lot easier. Like Achilles said.
What he was talking about stacking, in what Patrick and all of them just said, is you put your camera and you don't touch it. And like if you're shooting the city, then you find one of the explosion goes in front of it, and then when the explosion goes away, the cities crumble. So you cut during that stack, if you haven't done stacking. And when he was talking about locking off the camera, you have the guy that's getting shot, the camera doesn't move, and he goes, whoa, like he's gonna get shot, and then in post, you cut out the time where he walks out of the frame, and then all of a sudden he's not there. So locking off the camera, going to the website, watching tutorials to show how to stack, and then putting the effect in front of the layer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep,
Yeah.
pretty much, and getting After Effects.
Okay, great. And if the victim did basically like he got shot by laser, just, or, you know, just slowly dissolved, is that much more involved, or?
Well, I mean, it's all in the artistry of how you decide to define what dissolving looks like. So basically, the main parts you're going to do, you're going to shoot what you call your plates, which is going to be a shot of the guy doing his action, and then you're going to have him go away, and you're going to shoot a clean plate, which will be the same background from the same angle with nothing in it. And then you're going to take both of those shots, once they're edited to length, into After Effects. And you're going to basically cross-dissolve from one to the other, but the art of what your effect is going to be, I mean, because you could have it be a smoldering burn, like electricity going down, or it could be some sort of otherworldly glow, or whatever you define as that thing that dissolves him is the white. So that thing that dissolves him would be called your element. Any blood or any debris that falls to the ground would also be an element. And then all of those pieces are put together in the process called compositing.
And as soon as it looks sketchy, cut a lot, cut away from it. Maybe you have just a close-up of dust falling that reveals the gasp of the woman looking, going, oh, you know.
Because the basic shot's just, he gets shot, dissolves, and then you see his.
Did they use a lot of motion
Well, you know, I
capture
think
in Jurassic Park?
Phil
I'm not sure it was
Tippett
that
actually,
great, man.
there was a period of time when Tippett did a whole bunch of go motion tests.
Okay.
Because they didn't know at the time if the CGI stuff was going to fly or not. So Stan Winston built the giant puppets that were all on set, like the Triceratops and the big giant eyeball of the T-Rex. But then, Phil Tippett did a whole mess of the go motion miniatures, like the AT-AT basically in Empire Strikes Back. And but then they decided that they ended up using that as almost a motion capture for what inevitably became the animated CGI dinosaurs, which worked great in that movie. I think it made a few dollars.
So I hate to wrap it up, but it is that time. I want to thank everyone for coming out to the panel, the visual effects panel. I would like to thank all my panelists. We have the ability to stay around and hang out for a few minutes, so if you have any additional questions, if the guys don't mind, feel free to come up and ask them questions. We just got to start wrapping out, but they can hang out as long as you can buy them beer or wine and dine them.
You will never last that long.
Eric Hayden, Patrick Rodriguez, Jerry Thompson, I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for coming out to Social Media Film Festival. There is an after party. Everyone's invited. There's information about where that is outside on our brochure table.